Hello everyone, welcome to Data Science Simple. My name is Sebastian. Today we'll be talking about plots in Python. But before we do so, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, also visit datasciencesimple.com, and remember that the notebook that we'll go over can be found in the Data Science Simple repo. Now, we'll go over 4 different plots in Python. One is the scatter plot, then we'll do line plots, then we'll do histograms, and finally we'll do pie charts. So let's get started. Alright, so we're going to start by importing some functions. The first one is going to be pyplot. This is the one that we're going to use to create our plots. Then we're going to import numpy and random. These two are going to be used to generate the data. Now, let's move to scatter plots. A scatter plot is one of those plots where the dots in the plot are not connected through lines. So we will start by creating our data. So here we're creating the x values, and we're saying xval equal to open close square brackets. This is going to tell Python that this variable is going to be a list. And then here inside we have x for x in range 0 to 100. This means that we're going to create a list containing numbers from 0 to 99. On the other hand, the yval variable, again, is going to be a list constructed very similar to our xval variable, with the difference that here we don't have x, we have a formula. And the formula says x times 3 plus 120 times random. So pretty much is a straight line with a slope 3 plus a random number. Now let's take a look of how these numbers look like. I mean, the first 3 numbers in each one of the lists. So for the first list we have 0, 1, 2, and for the other one we have numbers that seems to be slightly random. That's just because of this contribution right here. When we make the plot, it will be very clear. Now, the plot. Here, this line, we're telling the dimensions of our plot. So it's going to be 10 points in the x direction and 4 points in the y direction. Now, the plot itself takes place here. Plot, scatter, and then we are passing xval and yval. And then we're telling Python our plot, our dots, are going to be green. Then here we're telling Python what to put for the x and y labels in the axis. So for the x label, we have this is the x-axis, and it's going to be font 18. Very similar for the y label. And here in these 2 lines, we're telling Python what is going to be the font size of the numbers along the axis. Let's take a look at the plot. Pretty cool, right? Alright, let's move to our second example where we're going to make a regular plot. In this case, we're going to plot 2 lines. One is y equal to 75 times x plus 1, a straight line, and the second one is a parabola, y equal to x to the power of 2 plus 2x plus 1. So we're going to generate the data here. So we're only going to generate y values because the x values, we're going to take them from our previous example. So this variable called yval2 is going to be a list. And here I'm putting the formula that I mentioned before, 75 times x plus 1. And yval3 is going to be our parabola. So let's take a look at the first 3 elements of those 2 lists. Alright, and now the fun part, the plot. So in this case, we're gonna tell Python that we want 5 points in the x direction and 5 points in the y direction. So our plot is gonna be a square. Now the plot itself takes place here. So we do plot, and then we're passing the xval list and the yval2 list. Here we're telling Python is going to be a green line, and the label is going to be y equals to 75x plus 1. Similar situation for our second line, with the difference that the color is going to be blue. And here we have, for the label, we have the equation for our parabola. The x and y axis are going to have labels, which are going to be X and Y. The font size in this case is going to be 20. The numbers along the X and Y axis are going to have a font size of 14. And this is something that we didn't have before. Limits in the Y and X axis. These lines are telling Python that the X axis, we only want to show numbers between 0 and 100, and for the Y axis, we only want numbers between 0 and 8000. Finally, we tell Python to plot the legend that refers to these two, and plot.show generates the plot. Let's take a look. Exactly what we wanted. A straight line, green, and a parabola, blue, and our legend here on the left top. Okay, moving along to our next example, we're going to revisit histograms. But first, we're going to define a couple of variables and we're going to create our data. So first thing, we're going to define mu as 1.75. Sigma is going to be equal to 0.1. And here we're going to create our data. So here we're telling Python to construct a list under the variable name height data. And it's going to be a normal distribution. So we're passing mu, sigma that we just defined. And we're telling Python, give me 10,000 points. And down here, I'm just going to show you the first 3 points in the list. Now, the plot itself. So the figure is going to be 8 times 4. Then this line constructs the histogram. So first, we're passing the list that we're constructing, the height data. Then we're telling Python, bins equal to 30. That means make 30 bins. And also make those bins green. Then here we're putting labels in our X and Y axis. X axis is going to be height. We're going to say that this is meters. Our Y axis is going to be frequency because it's a histogram. And here we're telling Python in the X axis only show us data between 1.4 and 2.1, while in the Y axis show us everything between 0 and 1200. X ticks are gonna have a font size of 14. And here comes something cool. This line here, we have plot Y ticks and then we're passing a list with the numbers 0, 400, 800 and 1200. This is telling Python that we only want to see those numbers in the Y-axis. And then of course we're saying make those numbers font size 14. Then we're telling Python to create a vertical line that is going to be centered at 1.75 and is going from Y equals 0 to Y equal 1200 and is going to be a red line. Let's take a look. So we got our histogram, and as you can see we have a red line here, labels here and here, and look, in the y-axis we're only having numbers 0, 400, 800 and 1200. Pretty cool, right? Alright, now moving to our last example, we're gonna do a pie chart. So we're going to define a couple of lists at the beginning. So first list is going to be called cars sold, and it's going to have a list of numbers. The idea behind it is that we want to plot how many cars were sold. And then we have the cars that were sold stored in a list called car make. Then we have our plot. So we do plot.py, and the first thing that we're going to pass are the cars sold. Then we are passing our labels. This is Toyota, Mazda, Honda, Nissan and Ford. Then the colors. And for colors, we're passing a list with the letters B, R, G, C and M. This means that Toyota will be blue, Mazda will be red, Honda will be green and so forth. Then we have shadow equals to true. What this does is to put like a little shadow below the pi. Then we do radius equal to 1.2, that's the radius of the circle. And then we do something cool here, which is explode, and we pass a list. This list tells us how off the center each one of the little pies will be. And you will see that in a second. Then finally we do font size equals to 16. These are the font size for the labels for Toyota, Mazda, Honda, and so forth. So let's run this, see what we get. So we get our pie, and you see Mazda is red, Toyota is blue, and you see Ford and Mazda are displaced from the center. That's what Explode is doing. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. I'll talk to you soon.